The Grand Nexus floated in the darkness between stars, a massive station built by 17 different alien species over 3,000 years. Its halls were wide enough for creatures of any size, and its walls glowed with soft light that changed colors based on who walked past. Today, those walls showed nervous patterns of yellow and orange. Deho stood in the waiting chamber, adjusting his formal uniform for the 10th time. He was 53 years old, with gray streaks in his black hair and tired eyes that had seen too many difficult negotiations. As Earth's ambassador, he carried the hopes of 12 billion humans on his shoulders. Behind him, Myung checked her datapad one more time. She was younger, sharper, with the alert posture of someone who had spent 20 years in military intelligence. "They're ready for us," Myung said quietly. Deho nodded. He picked up the small case containing Earth's petition for membership in the Galactic Coalition. 30 years ago, humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel by accident during a mining operation near Mars. Since then, they had built colonies on 6 worlds and made contact with the Coalition. Now they wanted to join properly. The doors opened and they walked into the council chamber. It was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into shadows far above. 17 species sat in a circle, each on platforms designed for their specific needs. Some breathed different atmospheres and sat behind force fields. Others were so large they made humans look like children. A few were so small that Deho could barely see them. High Chancellor Drexim sat at the highest point. He was Valkor, a species that looked like huge bears covered in metallic scales. His people had controlled a quarter of the galaxy for 5,000 years. When he looked down at Deho, his eyes showed nothing but contempt. "The humans wish to address the council," Drexim announced, his voice booming through translator devices. "Speak quickly. We have important matters to discuss after this." Deho felt the insult but kept his face calm. He had practiced this speech for months. "Honored members of the Coalition, humanity comes before you in peace and friendship. We are young compared to your ancient civilizations, but we are eager to learn and contribute. We have brought samples of our technology, records of our culture, and proposals for trade agreements." He activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, showing oceans and continents, cities and farms, humans of every color working together. Then came images of human colonies, their ships, their achievements in science and art. A serpent-like creature named Thesic hissed with what might have been laughter. "You have been in space for 3 decades. My people were building stargates when your ancestors lived in caves. What could you possibly offer us?" "We offer determination," Myung said, stepping forward. Deho hadn't expected her to speak, but he didn't stop her. "We offer adaptability. Earth is a difficult world. It has tried to kill us with ice, disease, predators, and disasters for millions of years. We survived everything it threw at us. We learned to solve problems that your species never faced." "Interesting words from children playing with stolen technology," Drexim said. Several council members made sounds that the translators interpreted as agreement. Then a different voice spoke, ancient and tired but somehow carrying more weight than all the others. "Perhaps the young ones should be heard with more respect." Every being in the chamber turned. From the shadows at the back, a figure slowly moved forward. Elder Vorath was Cathari, a species that looked like walking trees with too many arms. He was over 1,000 years old, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy. His wooden skin was covered in deep cracks and his movements were slow, but his eyes were bright with intelligence. "Elder Vorath," Drexim said with forced politeness, "we are honored by your presence. But surely you do not suggest these primitives deserve full membership." Vorath reached the center of the chamber. He moved with painful slowness, and Deho noticed that several council members looked impatient. But no one dared interrupt an elder. "I have lived long enough to see patterns," Vorath said. "I have watched species rise and fall. I have studied the ancient records that most of you have forgotten. There are files in our deepest archives about Earth, files placed there by the caretakers millions of years ago." The chamber became very quiet. The caretakers were legendary, an ancient race that had mapped the galaxy before any current species existed. Most considered their records to be myths. "The caretakers visited Earth long ago," Vorath continued. "They left a note in the archives. It says, 'Mark this world. Its children inherit the long memory. They will remember every slight, every wound, every kindness. If you find them among the stars, offer respect, not dominion. For they are born of a world that takes no prisoners and they will accept no masters.'" Drexim laughed. a sound like grinding metal. You quote ancient fairy tales to defend these apes? Elder Vorath, perhaps your age has finally caught up with your wisdom. The caretakers, if they ever existed, left these notes about 1,000 species. It means nothing. It means everything, Vorath said firmly. I urge this council to grant humanity full membership immediately. Do not treat them as lesser. Do not restrict them. Do not insult them. They may seem weak now, but I have learned one truth in my long life. The most dangerous beings in the galaxy are not the strongest or the fastest. They are the ones who refuse to forget. Thessic coiled in what might have been amusement. You suggest we fear them? They have 12 outdated ships and 6 small colonies. My people could conquer Earth in a week. I suggest you respect them, Vorath replied. But I am old, and old voices carry less weight in these modern times. Drexum stood up on his platform, making himself appear even larger. The coalition will vote. I propose we grant humanity protected development status. They will have limited territory, restricted trade rights, and no vote in coalition affairs. They will be protected from outside threats while they grow into proper civilization. When they have proven themselves worthy, perhaps in a few centuries we can reconsider. Daiho felt anger burn in his chest, but he kept his voice level. That is not what we requested. Protected development status is meant for species that haven't achieved spaceflight yet. We have colonies. We have trade. You have what we allow you to have, Drexum interrupted. Vote now. The vote was quick. 14 species voted for protected development status. 2 voted for full membership. 1 abstained. Elder Vorath voted for full membership, but it didn't matter. The decision is made, Drexum announced. Humanity will be granted protected development status. We will define your acceptable territory within the week. Any colonies outside that territory must be abandoned or placed under coalition administration. You may keep your current ships but must submit all new designs for approval. Trade will be limited to approved partners. This meeting is concluded. Daiho bowed slightly. We understand. Thank you for your consideration. As they left the chamber, Myung whispered, That was a humiliation. Yes, Daiho agreed quietly, and they will regret it. Elder Vorath caught up with them in the corridor, moving faster than seemed possible for his age. Ambassador Daiho, a moment please. They stopped. The old being looked at them with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. They did not listen. Vorath said sadly, They never do. But I want you to know that not all of us dismiss humanity. Some of us recognize what you are. Some of us understand what you will become. What will we become? Myung asked. Vorath was quiet for a long moment. Either the galaxy's salvation or its greatest nightmare. The choice will be yours, not theirs. But they have made one thing certain today. They have made an enemy when they could have made a friend. Humans do not forgive easily. I know this. The caretakers knew this. Soon everyone will know this. He turned and shuffled away, leaving Daiho and Myung standing in the glowing corridor. 3 days later, news reached Earth. The Valcor Empire had claimed 3 human colonies as being outside acceptable human territory. Their military fleets were already on the way to take control. The colonies had 72 hours to evacuate or submit to Valcor rule. Daiho read the message and smiled. It was not a happy smile. So it begins, he said. 3 years passed like a slow-moving storm. To the galaxy, humanity seemed to accept their place quietly. They stayed within their assigned borders, filed proper reports, and caused no diplomatic incidents. But beneath that peaceful surface, something else was happening. Jiwon floated in the captain's chair of the Silent Moon, watching sensor displays that showed absolutely nothing. That was exactly right. Her ship was invisible to every known form of detection in the galaxy. The coalition didn't know it existed. Neither did the 17 other ships in her squadron. She was 41 years old, with short black hair and scars on her hands from 20 years in special forces. Before the coalition vote, she had fought in small conflicts between human colonies. After the vote, she had been recruited for something much bigger. Target approaching, her sensor officer said quietly. Valcor supply convoy, 3 cargo ships, 2 escorts. Jiwon studied the display. The convoy was heading toward one of the 3 colonies the Valcor had taken from humanity. Those colonies were empty now. Every human had been evacuated in the 72 hours the Valcor had given them. The Valcor had taken empty buildings and abandoned equipment, but they had called it a victory. Weapons ready, Jiwon said. Remember, no survivors who can report what happened. Make it look like equipment failure. The silent moon moved closer. It made no sound, created no heat signature, and reflected no scanning beams. Human engineers had studied alien technology for 3 years and found its weaknesses. Then they had built something entirely new. The attack lasted 4 minutes. Precisely targeted missiles struck the convoy's power cores. The explosions looked exactly like reactor malfunctions. Before any distress signal could be sent, electronic warfare systems jammed every communication frequency. The escorts tried to fight back, but they were shooting at empty space. They couldn't see what was killing them. When it was over, Ji-Won allowed herself a small smile. Jump to coordinate 773. Next target in 6 hours. This was the 43rd convoy the Silent Moon had destroyed in 3 years. Across human space, other ships were doing the same work. The Valkor Empire was bleeding resources, and they had no idea why. On a station deep in Valkor territory, Hyunwoo sat in a bar drinking something blue that the aliens said was alcohol. He didn't particularly like the taste, but it gave him a reason to be there. He was 35, thin with forgettable features and a talent for languages. He had been undercover for 2 years. At the next table, 2 Valkor officers were arguing. Hyunwoo's translator implant picked up their words clearly. Another mining facility gone dark, the first officer growled. That's the 5th one this month. Command is going insane trying to figure out what's happening. Equipment failures, the second officer said, but he didn't sound convinced. Old machinery breaking down, all at once. In facilities across 20 systems. Don't be stupid. Someone is attacking us. Who? The humans? They're children playing with toys. We inspected their territory last month. They have nothing that could do this. Hyunwoo sipped his drink and watched. The first officer leaned closer, lowering his voice. I heard something from a friend in intelligence. They think the humans are involved, but they can't prove it. Every time they investigate, they find nothing. It's like fighting ghosts. Humans aren't clever enough for this, the second officer insisted. Hyunwoo finished his drink and left. Outside the bar, he walked to a maintenance tunnel that no one monitored. Inside, he activated a device no larger than his thumb. It sent a coded burst transmission that would reach human space in 3 days. The message was simple. Valkor intelligence suspects humans but has no proof. Increase misdirection protocols. The device destroyed itself after sending the message. Hyunwoo walked back to his apartment. Just another alien worker in a crowded station. Invisible and unremarkable. In a secret facility on Earth's moon, Soman studied holographic displays showing alien ship designs. She was 52, with gray hair and eyes that rarely blinked when she was focused on a problem. She had 3 doctoral degrees in physics and had spent her entire life solving impossible problems. The Valkor shields are strong against energy weapons, she told her team, but they're designed for fighting other aliens who prefer lasers and plasma. Look at the frequency patterns. See how they distribute energy across the shield surface? Her assistant, a young man named Changmin, nodded. They're optimized for continuous beam weapons. Exactly, Sumin said with satisfaction. Which means they're terrible against kinetic weapons. A simple piece of metal moving fast enough will punch right through, and their sensors are too sophisticated. They're looking for complex energy signatures. They can't track something simple like a magnetic railgun projectile. So we use old technology to beat new technology, Changmin said. We use appropriate technology, Soman corrected. Aliens have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They've developed very advanced weapons for fighting each other, but they've forgotten the basics. Humans haven't forgotten. We've been throwing rocks at each other since we lived in caves. We're just throwing them much, much faster now. She pulled up a new design. It was a ship, but it looked nothing like the smooth, elegant vessels the aliens built. It was brutal and simple, just engines, armor, and weapons. This is the Righteous Fury. We're building 15 of them in secret facilities in the asteroid belt. The Valkor have nothing that can stop it. Back in Coalition space, the Valkor Empire was becoming frustrated. High Chancellor Drexum sat in his command center, reading reports that made no sense. In 3 years, his empire had lost hundreds of ships, dozens of facilities, and countless resources. Every investigation found nothing. Every inspection of human territory showed they were following all the rules. The humans must be responsible, he told his advisors. It's too convenient. These problems started exactly when we took their colonies. But we've checked everything, his military commander said. Their ships match their declared specifications. Their territory has no hidden bases. Their communications show nothing suspicious. If they're doing this, we can't prove it. Drexim's claws scraped against his chair. Then we'll force the issue. Prepare a fleet, 50 capital ships. We'll go to Earth itself and demand answers. If they resist, we'll teach them what happens to species that disrespect the Valkor Empire. His advisor hesitated. The Coalition may not approve of such action. The Coalition will understand, Drexim said. We're enforcing the rules they created. Humanity is clearly violating their protected development status. We have the right to investigate. And if they're innocent, they have nothing to fear. The order went out. 50 of the Empire's finest warships began gathering for a journey to Earth. It would take 3 weeks to assemble the fleet and make the journey. Drexim was confident it would end quickly. The humans would see the fleet panic and surrender. Then the real investigation would begin. On Earth, Ambassador Deho received word of the Valkor fleet. He sat in his office looking at the estimated arrival time. Myung stood beside him reading her own reports. They're sending 50 capital ships, she said. That's enough to destroy our official fleet 10 times over. Yes, Deho agreed calmly. Should I be more worried? Myung asked. Deho smiled. It was the same smile he had worn 3 years ago when he received news of the Valkor taking the colonies. Do you remember what Elder Vorath said? That humanity would be either the galaxy's salvation or its greatest nightmare. I remember. The Valkor are about to find out which one we are. He pressed a button on his desk. Execute protocol revelation. All assets to Sol system. It's time to stop being ghosts. Across human space, in hidden bases and secret facilities, on invisible ships and in underground bunkers, the message was received. Captain Jiwon read it on her display and felt her heart beat faster. 3 years of silent war were about to become very loud. All ships, she broadcast to her squadron, jump to Earth. The Valkor are coming and we're going to teach them something about human memory. The silent moon and hundreds of other vessels began moving. They had been invisible for 3 years, striking from shadows, never showing themselves. Now they would step into the light. The Valkor wanted to see what humanity could do. They were about to get their wish. On his station deep in Valkor territory, Hyunwoo received the message to evacuate. He smiled as he packed his few belongings. His work here was done. The Valkor intelligence network was compromised. Their military protocols were copied and their weapon designs were analyzed. Everything humanity needed to win a war was already in Earth's databases. He walked out of his apartment and toward the transport docks. Behind him, hidden in his apartment's walls, a dozen small devices activated. In 3 days, they would corrupt the station's main computer core. The Valkor would lose 5 years of intelligence data. By the time they figured out what happened, Hyunwoo would be home. Elder Vorath, in his retirement chamber on a peaceful world far from politics, received a message from an old friend. The Valkor are going to Earth, the message said. War is coming. Vorath closed his eyes. He had warned them. He had tried to make them understand. But they had dismissed his words, just as they had dismissed humanity. Now the lessons would be taught in fire and blood. The galaxy is about to change. The Valkor fleet entered the Sol system with arrogance that came from 5,000 years of dominance. 50 massive warships, each one larger than any human vessel ever built, moved in perfect formation. Their shields glowed with power. Their weapons were charged, and their sensors swept ahead for any sign of resistance. Fleet Commander Zolthar sat on the bridge of his flagship, the dominant Will. He was proud of his record, 30 battles, 30 victories. He had destroyed rebel fleets, conquered primitive worlds, and enforced Valkor law across 100 systems. This mission would be easy. Frighten the humans, force them to confess their crimes, and return home victorious. We're passing Neptune's orbit, his sensor officer reported. No contacts detected. Where is their defensive fleet? Zolthar asked. Retreating toward Earth, Commander. 12 ships. Old designs, minimal weapons. They're broadcasting surrender requests, Zolthar laughed. Already begging for mercy. Humans are even weaker than I thought. Ignore their transmissions. We'll accept their surrender when we're ready, not before. In reality, Admiral Taehyun was not begging for anything. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Valkor fleet approach. His 12 ships were indeed old and poorly armed. That was intentional. Everything about humanity's official military was designed to look weak. They're past Neptune, his tactical officer reported. Still coming fast. Good, Taehyun said. He was 60 years old with white hair and a calm expression that never changed, even in battle. He had fought in Earth's last major war 40 years ago. He had learned patience then. Keep retreating. Make them think we're scared. Lead them deeper. His ships turned away from the Valkor fleet, running toward Earth as if in panic. Their weapons fired a few ineffective shots that splashed harmlessly against Valkor shields. It looked like a desperate, hopeless defense. Zolthar smiled as he watched the humans run. They can't even aim properly. Continue pursuit. I want to be at Earth by tomorrow. The Valkor fleet passed Uranus, then Saturn, its rings glowing in the sunlight. Still no real resistance, just the pathetic human fleet running away. Zolthar began composing his victory report in his mind. Then they reached Jupiter's orbit. Commander, the sensor officer said, his voice suddenly uncertain. I'm getting strange readings. What kind of readings? Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them. They're just appearing all around us. On the tactical display, space suddenly filled with red markers. They appeared from nowhere, as if they had been invisible until that moment. Because they had been. Zolthar stared at the display in disbelief. That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected them. Captain Jiwan watched the Valkor fleet from the Silent Moon's bridge. She could see the moment they realized they were surrounded. All ships, she broadcast on the human command channel. Activate weapons systems. Execute attack pattern Omega. Across hundreds of ships, humans who had been hiding for 3 years finally revealed themselves. The Silent Moon and her sister ships had been waiting in the cold darkness between Jupiter's moons, powered down to almost nothing. Invisible to every sensor the Valkor possessed, but now they came alive. Fire, Jiwan said quietly. The space around the Valkor fleet exploded with violence. Missiles launched from 100 different directions, each one guided by human intelligence that had studied Valkor ships for 3 years. They didn't target the heavy armor or the strong shields. They targeted the small, vulnerable points where systems connected, where armor was thinnest, where shields had gaps. Electronic warfare systems activated, jamming Valkor communications and sensors. The Valkor ships suddenly went blind, unable to coordinate, unable to see what was attacking them. They fired their weapons wildly, hitting empty space or sometimes each other. Kinetic weapons fired from concealed platforms in the asteroid belt. Simple metal cylinders accelerated to incredible speeds using electromagnetic rails. No complex technology, no energy signatures to detect, just mass and velocity. The Valkor shields designed to disperse energy weapons barely slowed them down. Metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed punched through shields like they were paper. Contact lost with ships 7, 12, and 24, Zolthar's communication officer shouted. Ships 15 and 33 report critical damage. We're being hit from all directions. Return fire, Zolthar commanded. Target those ships. But targeting was impossible. The human ships were too fast, too small, and too smart. They attacked in coordinated groups, hitting one Valkor ship from multiple angles, then disappearing before the return fire arrived. It was nothing like the formal battles the Valkor were used to, where fleets lined up and exchanged fire until one side won. This was chaos, confusion, and terror. From deeper in the asteroid belt, something much larger began to move. The righteous fury was not elegant. It was a flying block of armor and weapons, built by humans who valued function over beauty. Captain Minseo commanded from her chair, watching the battle data flow across her screens. Main railgun charged, her weapons officer reported. Select targets, Minseo ordered. Aim for the command ships. Make every shot count. The Righteous Fury's primary weapon was simple in concept. It was a very large metal projectile, accelerated using magnetic fields to incredible velocity. The projectile was guided during its flight, capable of adjusting its course. When it hit, it carried more kinetic energy than most alien weapons could produce. The first shot took 12 seconds to reach its target. 12 seconds during which the Valkor ship had no idea it was coming, because there was no energy signature to detect, no warning, just a piece of metal moving through space. It hit the dominant will's port side, punched through the shields, through the armor, and through 3 decks before the kinetic energy was finally absorbed. The explosion that followed as systems overloaded killed 200 Valkor crew members in an instant. Zolthar was thrown from his chair. Alarm screamed. Half his bridge displays went dark. Damage report, he shouted. Port side destroyed. We've lost main power. Secondary shields failing. Another projectile hit, this time striking the engine section. The dominant will lurched, its propulsion gone. Around it, other Valkor ships were suffering the same fate. The proud fleet that had entered the Sol system was being torn apart. "Retreat," Zolthar finally ordered. "All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of here." But jumping to faster-than-light travel required calculations, required sensors, required computers that weren't being jammed by human electronic warfare. Ships tried to jump and failed. Their navigation systems confused and blind. Those that managed to jump did so without coordination, fleeing in random directions. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 43 Valkor ships were destroyed or dead in space, their crews killed or abandoned. 7 ships remained functional, barely. They had tried to fight, tried to retreat, tried everything they knew. Nothing had worked. Admiral Taehyun's battered fleet approached the surviving Valkor ships. His vessels looked damaged, and they were. The Valkor had managed to destroy 2 human ships before being overwhelmed. But now, with the real human fleet revealed, the power balance was obvious. Taehyun opened a communication channel. His face appeared on every surviving Valkor screen. "Fleet Commander Zolthar, this is Admiral Taehyun of Earth Defense Command. Do you wish to surrender?" Zolthar's face was covered in blood from a head wound. His proud posture was gone, replaced by shock and disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How did you hide all this?" "You never asked the right questions," Taehyun replied. "You assumed we were weak because we were young. You assumed we were stupid because we were different. You never considered that we might be smart enough to show you exactly what we wanted you to see." "The Coalition will hear about this," Zolthar said, trying to find some authority in his voice. "You've violated every rule of protected development status. You'll be destroyed." "Perhaps," Taehyun agreed. "But you came to our home system with 50 warships. You came to threaten us, to attack us. We defended ourselves. That's not a violation. That's survival. And humans are very, very good at survival." On Earth, Myung stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching data flow from the battle. Around her, hundreds of analysts and officers worked at terminals coordinating humanity's revealed military. She felt satisfaction, not joy. This was necessary, but it wasn't pleasant. "The Valkor fleet is broken," she reported to Daeho, who was watching from his office. 7 ships remaining. "Do we destroy them?" Daeho was quiet for a long moment. "No, let them go. Let them carry the message home. If we kill everyone, the Valkor will have no choice but to seek revenge. If we let survivors escape, they'll tell the story. They'll tell everyone what happened when they attacked Earth." "And what's the message?" Myung asked. "That humanity remembers," Daeho said. "We remembered what the Valkor did 3 years ago. We remembered every insult, every threat, every stolen colony. And we prepared. Tell Admiral Taehyun to let them go with this warning. The next violation will not end with survivors." Taehyun delivered the message to the Valkor. The 7 battered ships were allowed to repair their critical systems. Then, escorted by silent human vessels, they were guided to the edge of the Sol system and released. Zolthar sat in his damaged command chair, looking at the recordings his ship had made. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every species in the Coalition had seen the recordings from the Battle of Sol. The images were shocking. A Valkor fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, destroyed by humans who were supposed to be primitive and protected. The Grand Nexus became a place of chaos. Emergency sessions were called. Ambassadors shouted at each other. Some species demanded immediate military action against humanity. Others called for investigation. A few, very quietly, began calculating whether they should seek human friendship instead of human destruction. High Chancellor Drexim sat in his private chambers, watching the battle recordings for the 20th time. Each viewing made him angrier and more frightened. Angry because the Valkor Empire had been humiliated. Frightened because those human weapons were unlike anything he had seen before. Simple, brutal, and terrifyingly effective. "The Coalition Security Council demands answers," his advisor said nervously. "They want to know how humanity acquired such technology. They want to know if we provoked the attack. They want to know if we're competent to maintain security in our region of space." Drexim's claws scraped against his chair hard enough to leave marks. "We enforced coalition law. The humans were clearly violating their protected development status. We had every right to investigate." "With 50 warships," his advisor asked quietly. "Get out. Drexum growled. Alone in his chamber, he knew the truth. The Valcor Empire had overreached. They had assumed victory and found disaster. And now the entire galaxy was questioning Valcor power. If they didn't respond properly, other species might challenge them. But if they attacked humanity again and failed, the Empire would be finished. It was a problem with no good solution. At the Grand Nexus, Ambassador Deho stood before the full Galactic Coalition for the second time in 3 years. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. No one laughed. No one showed contempt. They looked at him with fear, suspicion, and in some cases, calculation. The Coalition demands an explanation. Thesic hissed. You claim to have limited military capability. You claim to accept your protected development status. Yet you destroyed a Valcor fleet with ease. You have hidden military forces, hidden technology, and hidden intentions. This is a violation of every agreement. Deho stood calmly at the center of the chamber. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years. With respect, Counselor Thesic, we violated nothing. Protected development status restricts where we can travel, who we can trade with, and what technologies we must report. It does not restrict our right to defend ourselves. You hid an entire fleet, Drexum shouted from his platform. You lied about your capabilities. We revealed exactly what was asked, Deho replied, his voice level. The Coalition inspection teams asked about our official defensive fleet. We showed them 12 ships, which was accurate. They asked about military bases within our assigned territory. We showed them what existed within those boundaries, which was accurate. They asked about specific technologies on their inspection lists. We demonstrated we did not possess those exact technologies, which was accurate. You're playing word games, Drexum accused. We're following the rules as written, Deho corrected. The Coalition created protected development status. We studied those rules carefully. We found that while many things were restricted, defensive capabilities were not. Building weapons to protect our home system was entirely legal. The only requirement was that we not use those weapons for aggression. We didn't. We used them to defend Earth when 50 Valcor warships entered our territory with hostile intent. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several ambassadors checked their data pads, verifying Deho's claims. Technically, legally, he was correct. The rules for protected development status had been written assuming that protected species would be too primitive to hide anything. No one had considered that a species might be smart enough to find the gaps. You killed 15,000 Valcor, another counselor said. They came to kill us, Myung said, stepping forward to stand beside Deho. What did you expect us to do? Surrender our world? Let them destroy our civilization? We defended ourselves. That's not a crime. That's survival. A new voice spoke, strong and clear despite its age. Elder Vorath entered the chamber, moving faster than anyone had seen him move in years. Perhaps now the council will listen to what I said 3 years ago. I warned you. I told you that humanity should be treated with respect, not dominion. I explained what the ancient records said about Earth. You laughed. You called me senile. Now you have learned the cost of dismissing wisdom. Elder Vorath, Drexum said carefully, surely you cannot support what the humans have done. I support what I have always supported, truth and justice, Vorath replied. The truth is that the Valcor Empire tried to intimidate a weaker species. The justice is that they failed. Ambassador Deho is correct. Humanity violated no laws. They simply refused to be victims. Deho took advantage of the moment. The Coalition faces a choice. You can treat this as a violation and declare war on humanity. If you do, study those battle recordings carefully. Study how we fight. Study how we think. Study how we remember. Then ask yourselves if you want to face that in a war. The chamber was silent. Every species was thinking the same thing. Those recordings showed human tactics that were completely alien to how galactic warfare normally worked. No honor, no formal rules, just efficiency and violence. Fighting humans would not be like fighting each other. Or, Deho continued, you can recognize that a mistake was made 3 years ago. You can acknowledge that humanity deserves a proper place in the galactic community, not as protected children but as equals. You can choose partnership over conflict. You're threatening us, Thesic said. I'm offering you a choice, Deho replied. 3 years ago you made us second-class citizens. We accepted it because we wanted peace. But we also prepared, because we knew that weakness invites attack. We were right. The Valcor came to our home to threaten us. We defended ourselves. Now you must decide, will you learn from this or repeat it? On her homeworld, Chairwoman Yunji recorded a message that would be broadcast across the galaxy. She was 65 years old, the Prime Minister of United Earth, and she had been preparing this speech for months. When she spoke, her words were simple but powerful. To the species of the Galactic Coalition, I am Yunji, leader of United Earth. You are watching this because you want to understand humanity. You want to know how we defeated the Valkor. You want to know if you should fear us. Let me explain. You look at humanity and see 30 years in space. We see millions of years of evolution on a world that tried to kill us constantly. Earth gave us ice ages, diseases, predators, and natural disasters. We survived everything. We didn't survive because we were strong. We survived because we were adaptable, because we were clever, and because we never, ever gave up. When you reached the stars, you found a peaceful galaxy where species traded and talked. When we reached the stars, we brought with us the lessons of Earth. We brought caution, preparation, and memory. We remember kindness. We remember insults. We remember threats, and we prepare for all of them. 3 years ago, you placed restrictions on humanity. You took our colonies. You treated us like children. We could have fought then. We didn't. We waited. We watched. We learned everything about you. We studied your technology and found its weaknesses. We studied your tactics and found their patterns. We studied your psychology and found your assumptions. The Valkor assumed we were weak. They were wrong. But they were wrong because of their own choices, not ours. We showed them exactly what they expected to see. They never looked deeper because they never respected us enough to consider we might be hiding something. Now you must make your choice. You can continue to treat us as lesser. You can try to force us back into the box you created. If you do, you will learn the same lesson the Valkor learned. Or you can recognize that humanity belongs among you as equals. You can offer respect instead of dominion. If you do, you will find that humans make loyal friends. We are the children of Earth. We survived for millions of years by being smart, being tough, and having long memories. We don't forget our friends. We don't forget our enemies. Choose which one you want to be. The message was watched by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The reactions were mixed. Some species were frightened. Some were angry, but many were impressed. Humanity had been pushed down and had pushed back. There was a kind of honor in that, even if it wasn't the formal honor that galactic society usually recognized. Over the next weeks, things began to change. Small coalition members, species who had also been dismissed or marginalized, began sending quiet messages to Earth. They offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, and friendship. They saw in humanity something they recognized, the will to be more than others expected. Larger species remained uncertain. The Valkor maintained angry silence, neither apologizing nor threatening. Others watched and calculated, trying to decide if humanity was a temporary problem or a permanent change to the galactic order. Then the Coalition Security Council made its decision. After weeks of debate, they sent an official message to Earth. It was not what anyone expected. Ambassador Daiho read the message in his office. 20 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy had learned to live with humanity's presence. The change had not been easy or quick, but it had been inevitable. Humans were no longer the dismissed newcomers or the feared unknown. They had become something else entirely, the species others called when everything else had failed. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the carrier Unity, watching the combined fleet assemble around her flagship. Her hair was now streaked with gray, and the scars on her hands had been joined by others, but her eyes were still sharp, still alert. She commanded Task Force Sentinel, a military group that included ships from 7 different species, all working together to face a threat that had emerged 3 years ago from beyond the galactic rim. The Devourers, as they were called, were unlike anything the Coalition had faced before. They didn't negotiate, didn't trade, and didn't stop. They consumed worlds, stripped them of resources, and moved on. 3 systems had fallen already. Conventional Coalition tactics had failed repeatedly. All ships report ready, her tactical officer said. Lieutenant Bora was young, born after the Battle of Sol, part of a generation that had grown up with humanity as a galactic power. Execute approach pattern Echo, Jiwan ordered. Remember, Devourers don't think like us. They react to patterns. We need to be unpredictable. Among her fleet were Valkor warships. That fact still amazed some people, but G1 understood it. The Valcor had learned their lesson 20 years ago. They had learned that humans remembered insults, but they also remembered when enemies became allies. After the Battle of Sol, it had taken 5 years of careful diplomacy, but eventually the Valcor had apologized. They had paid reparations for the colonies they had taken. They had offered technology exchanges and military cooperation. Most importantly, they had treated humanity with respect. Captain Rothak commanded the Valcor heavy cruiser fighting alongside Unity. He was young for a Valcor officer, barely 200 years old. He had studied the Battle of Sol extensively, not to seek revenge but to understand human tactics. Now he used those lessons to fight the Devourers, human vessels approaching from multiple vectors, Rothak observed. Coordinated strike pattern. Very efficient. His second officer, also Valcor, nodded. 20 years ago we called them primitive. Now we learn from them. Pride makes fools of us all, Rothak replied. Better to learn late than never. The battle against the Devourers was hard and bloody, but the combined fleet won. They won because humans had taught other species to think differently about warfare, not honor and formal rules, but adaptability and efficiency. The Devourers expected standard coalition tactics. They got human unpredictability with alien technology. The combination was devastating. After the battle, G1 hosted a meeting with all the fleet commanders. They came from different species, different cultures, different worlds, but they worked together smoothly, without the friction that had marked coalition military operations in the past. Good work, everyone, G1 said. We lost 8 ships, but we saved a system with 3 billion inhabitants. I'm submitting commendations for 37 officers across the fleet. Get some rest. Intel suggests the Devourers will regroup and hit us again in 2 weeks. As the meeting ended, Captain Rothak approached her. Admiral, I wanted to thank you. My tactical officer was injured during the battle. Your medical team saved his life using techniques our doctors didn't know. We share everything now, G1 replied. That's what allies do. It is strange, Rothak said thoughtfully. 20 years ago, my people wanted to conquer you. Now I cannot imagine fighting without you. How did this happen? G1 smiled. You made a mistake, you admitted it, and you made amends. That's all humanity ever wanted, respect and fairness. Give us those and we'll remember you as friends forever. Take them away and we'll remember that too. On Earth, Hyunwoo now directed the Coalition Intelligence Service. After his undercover work in Valcor territory, he had spent years building bridges between different intelligence agencies. It had been difficult work. Species that had spied on each other for thousands of years didn't trust easily. But humans had a unique advantage. They were new enough that they didn't carry old grudges with most species. Analysis of the Devourer command structure is complete, his deputy reported. She was a Molvari named Tessik, daughter of the counselor who had once mocked humanity in the Grand Nexus. The younger generation had fewer prejudices. Send it to Admiral G1, Hyunwoo said, and make sure all member species get copies. No secrets between allies. The Valcor specifically requested your analysis of their intelligence failures 20 years ago, Tessik said carefully. They want to improve their training programs. Hyunwoo raised an eyebrow. They want to know how we beat them. Yes, but they're asking, not demanding. And they're offering full access to their current protocols in exchange. Give them everything, Hyunwoo decided. If we're going to face the Devourers together, we need every species operating at maximum efficiency. Besides, the Valcor aren't enemies anymore. They're students, and good students become good partners. In a laboratory that floated in orbit around Jupiter, Soman worked with alien scientists on projects that would have been impossible alone. She was 72 now, officially retired, but she couldn't stay away from solving problems. Her current team included a Cathari physicist, 2 Valcor engineers, and a half-dozen human researchers. The Devourer shielding is fascinating, the Cathari physicist said, studying holographic displays. It combines organic and technological components in ways we've never seen, which means we need to attack it in ways they've never seen, Soman replied. She manipulated the hologram, showing potential weak points. Look here. Their shields regenerate by absorbing energy. Traditional weapons make them stronger, but they're vulnerable to disruption at the molecular level. A Valcor engineer named Krothar studied the data. A quantum resonance weapon? We've considered such designs but never built them. They're unstable. They're unstable using traditional Valcore power systems, Soman agreed. But if we combine your power generation with human stabilization techniques and Cathari quantum mathematics, we can make it work. This is why we work together. None of us could do this alone. The weapon they designed would be deployed in 6 months. It would turn the tide in the war against the Devourers. It would be called the Unity Disruptor, a name that reflected its mixed heritage. In the Grand Nexus, the Coalition Council met to discuss the war and other matters. The Council had changed significantly in 20 years. Some species had risen in influence, others had fallen, but humanity's position had become central to how the Coalition functioned. Ambassador Deho had retired 5 years ago, replaced by a younger diplomat named Yunho. But Deho still attended important sessions as an advisor. He sat beside Elder Vorath, who was impossibly still alive at over 1,000 years old. The ancient Cathari moved slowly, but his mind remained sharp. The war goes well, Yunho reported to the council. Task Force Sentinel has won 3 consecutive battles. Civilian casualties are decreasing, and cooperation between species has never been stronger. Humanity has proven valuable, High Chancellor Drexham admitted. The Valcore leader was older now, more humble. The disaster 20 years ago had changed him. Your tactical innovations have saved many lives, including Valcore lives. For this we are grateful. The gratitude is mutual, Yunho replied. Valcore manufacturing capacity has provided the ships and supplies needed for this campaign. The Molvari Intelligence Network has given us early warning of Devourer movements. The Cathari scientific knowledge has helped us understand their technology. Every species contributes. That's the strength of the Coalition. Elder Vorath spoke, his voice still carrying authority despite his age. 20 years ago, this council dismissed humanity. Today, humanity holds this council together. It is a remarkable transformation. But it happened because both sides learned. Humanity learned that power must be tempered with wisdom. The Coalition learned that dismissing others leads to disaster. These lessons must not be forgotten. Speaking of memory, Deho said, standing slowly, there is something I want to share with the council. He activated a holographic display. It showed a memorial, beautiful and solemn, built on one of Earth's moons. The memorial listed names, 15,000 names. Valcore names. The soldiers who had died in the Battle of Sol 20 years ago. Humanity built this memorial 5 years ago, Deho explained. We funded it, designed it, and maintain it. We invite Valcore families to visit and pay their respects. We do this because while we remember the battle, we also remember that those soldiers were following orders. They were doing their duty as they understood it. We honor that even though we fought against them. The council chamber was silent. Many species had war memorials, but none had ever built one for enemies they had killed. Drexham stood on his platform, and for the first time in 20 years, Deho saw tears in the old Valcore's eyes. This is unexpected. Why would you honor those who came to destroy you? Because we remember everything, Deho replied. We remember the battle. We remember the threat, but we also remember that those soldiers were people with families and lives. We remember that the real enemy was not the soldiers, but the decision to send them.